Again, I'm making a video to answer some critics. Number one is to come out in some kind of support for the double standards bad MP Nigel Farage. But because I'm a decent person, I'm actually going to say a few things of support, but you can't deny the analysis of people looking at his rabbit caught in headlights reaction to the allegations that he may or may not have said a few things that are racist while he was at school. That would have been in the 70s. Number two is why not to support or vote Labour. There may still be some people out there. Three is to reply to Richard Inman and Candid with Lubna, because when I am censored, I will basically attack back like a wounded dog. And I'm a wounded dog and say some things. And four, that yes, if it happened, I would support a coup. I can't believe I'm saying that, but yes, I would. I think that I can't see any other way now than to save Britain. I actually wasn't joking. They say many a true word spoken in jest. We have imported hundreds of thousands of people from places where we shouldn't have taken them, from parts of the world that are literally under the rule of religious nutters. And what do? We find some religious nutters of our own. So let's go down the list. So Farage, he probably did say something racist at school. If he was at school in the 70s or 80s, you would hear racist things. Now, luckily, I went to a good school. I went to a Christian Jewish school. It's now called a Christian Jewish school, but it was an ecumenical school. So really not that good, but it was better than what I would have got at the Roman Catholic school, and it was better than I would have got at state school. Because if I hadn't had a good school and a good mother, I mean, I could be in jail. Do you know what I mean? Let's not mess around. I've never been in jail, but basically, that's the kind of school I went to. It's quite clear the media have got double standards. It's quite clear that basically if you say racist things on the Labour Party, like, if you get yourself involved in the non-existent Gaza situation, that in my opinion you're being racist. And that's actually another reason why I'm so annoyed with Lubna. She lets Islamists spout on about there's a genocide going on in Gaza. There isn't. There isn't a genocide going on in Gaza. Because, yeah, sure, maybe he did say some racist things. People did. And let me explain to you, having lived in Europe, Asia, Australasia, when you go to Asia, you find racism there. For instance, in India, they call black people Negroes. Incorrect. The Negroes are only one of the great tribes of Africa. But yes, I would say there is racism in India to a point. And sadly, I think with education that can be overcome. It's like someone said to me the other day that black people are stupid. That's a terrible thing to say. Not all black people are as stupid as David Lammy, for instance. But the trouble is you can't talk about these things. You can't talk about these things in England, which is why this is an offshore channel. Yeah? I mean, if David Lammy had become, what was he? He was the foreign secretary. If he'd become the foreign minister during the 80s, people would have called him a thick bleep, 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 bleep. It's just the way it is. I mean, if you happen to play cricket in Essex or Australia, they will pull you out on your ethnicity, where you're from, things like that. I mean, what, are Australians racist for calling us pommy wimps? Well, they're actually quite right, actually. So the whole thing with Farage is that he should just say, look, at the time, I said something, inappropriate. I've now got Zia Yusuf, who is clearly a moderate Muslim. Yeah. It's quite clear that Zia Yusuf does not want Sharia law. There are many Muslims born into Islam who do not want Sharia law, for sure. So Farage is making an attempt to bring the country together, but he's called a fascist. Well, I think he's also right, Farage, is that if he goes, God help us as to what might come next. And what comes next will not get electable, because actually one of the other things about, this is point number 3, is that people like Nick Tanconi and Tommy Robinson are unelectable for very, very different reasons, because I haven't yet put the tag fascist on Tommy Robinson. Yeah? Because if you're going to have a political and legal journey, don't do it with about 3 to 4 million supporters. Yeah? Just don't do it, because you came out of jail looking like you were about to start singing My Sweet Lord. You know what I mean? Yes, you looked a more softer, cuddly Tommy Robinson. So anyway, yeah, the Labour Party. I went to university having made I did terrible. I did worse than Farage at school. I was the Labour Party candidate. This was after my brother completely, he steamrolled my dad. My dad did not have the tools to take my brother down when he'd gone to. I'm the naughty third child, by the way. I'm sure you can probably tell that. Is that when this piece of scum was at school, he was basically cheering on this lady. It's quite funny. But one term of university, it took them one term to get him. He became a complete rabid Marxist. Well, also his carpet munching girlfriend was also a rabid communist. So, it's a bit sad, but he did. And also the left, the views of the left are very, very enticing. I mean, as Thatcher said, socialism doesn't work because eventually you run out of people to tax. You can't tax productivity. You cannot tax enterprise. It's not, you will end up with a complete basket case country. And we're 9/10 of the way. And the other thing is, because I'd had the benefit of seeing this rubbish, when I went to a seriously left-wing university. It was Leeds. It was where Arthur Scargill had gone there. When I went to this kind of rabid left-wing university, I ended up with a situation where you notice this stuff. You notice the indoctrination almost from day one, and you thought, wait a minute, I've heard that before. I used to hear that over Sunday lunch. And then I saw the Labour Party for what it was, and it was a closed shop of wankers, basically. It was like, to get in on this closed shop, there had to be something. But it became crystal clear, and also because I was taught proper economics. I mean, I may have been drinking my way through my degree, which reflected badly on my result. Is I was lucky also enough to have an economics degree where I was actually taught the 3 major strands of economics. So the Labour Party is a joke, and then we look at the joke of what's happening on the right at the moment, which is a complete ego fest. I mean, you've got the little man, Genrick. Actually, that was quite a good publicity stunt, because people are now turning around when they're going through the barriers. If you jump through the barriers in most countries as an expat, you will get a police record and you'll probably be chucked out of the country. That's how metros work in pretty much every other country. If you go to the Parisian subway system, you've got a massive barrier facing you. So, but in lawless, pathetic Britain, it has now become an open secret that you can go through the barriers and no one will do anything. And that is something which I think in the video age, we surely should be able to do something about that without there being digital ID and stuff like that. But on the other hand, I would be the first to say that if someone is unemployed, they need free train fare. Sorry, I digress. But anyway, yeah, the state of right-wing politics. You've got the fact that Conservative Party has now become unelectable, and there has to be some kind of event soon which is going to bring a movement together. I don't like the word movement. The word movement has got its origins in fascism, sort of language they used. So you're going to be very, I think people right of centre who want free market economics, who want a free country, have got to be very, very, very careful, because we've got fascism back. And the fascism is back in the way that people like Tanconi are talking. He's saying, we cannot have non-Christians in government. Well, why not? Rishi Sunak was an example of a statesman. Now, I know you'll be having a go at me for this. Rishi Sunak did the right thing for the country by becoming Prime Minister. He faced an economic meltdown because of an unfunded budget. Yeah? Quite simple. But getting on to UKIP and the censorship that's going on YouTube, well, enjoy it while it lasts, but the Online Safety Act will kick in and all of the online YouTubers will be chucked off. I'm telling you. Someone's got to do it from overseas. I'm taking a risk basically still doing this channel. I'm not doing this channel because I'm bored. I'm not doing this channel because I want power. I'm unelectable to a point. But mind you, compared to some of the other nutters around, let me go over what is going on the far right. And there's going to be a separate video made on this. They are a bunch of criminals. As far as I'm concerned, and I did watch briefly, I can only take so much at a time. Tenkoni is what Farage warns about if he is defeated, is that something worse will come along. Well, Tenkoni is getting a lot of support, but he will never break the woke mind virus, as Elon Musk says. He's got no credentials to be Prime Minister. He's got no qualifications, and he's just admitted that, because I was actually trying to sort of assess what had happened. He clearly went to, he's got the sort of self-entitled stuff about him. He's a jumped up little public school boy. He clearly went to private school somewhere like Reading, somewhere like that, where he couldn't get into the grammar school, so mummy and daddy paid for him. And then when he got his third-rate degree, probably in, some obscure subject somewhere, he then, mummy and daddy and the old school club got him a job in recruitment. That's not working in the city, mate. Nah. Working in the city is working in the city. Mayfair is not the city. So he's not got that. He's not got any qualifications, and then he basically went back to being a personal trainer. So he's a jumped up personal trainer, saying some very stupid things. It is a fact that we have a large number of people from our former empire, the vast majority of whom are pretty decent people. We also have large numbers of people who've come in on legitimate visas, again, most of them being very, very nice, decent people, who are Hindus, Christians, and Muslims. There are Muslims who want to escape being under radical Islamic rule, but as a national security issue, we should not be taking anyone where they could have been radicalized. It's as simple as that. But we've got to do something. And the problem we have is that then people like Lubna come in. Now, Lubna has got very noble aims, and I would still like to come in and discuss these things on her channel. I'm not anti-Muslim at all. I mean, if people want to practice Islam under the rule of law, not calling for Sharia law to be imposed on anybody and stuff like that, that is their choice. That is what the so-called Christian nationalists do not get, politically. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But then we've got the fact that, Lubna's got this guy called Jake, who I called a communist Ofsted person. Now, he will almost certainly be able to demonstrate why he's not, but he'll be a centrist. Well, I'm sorry, there's no such thing as a centrist. It doesn't exist. Centrists do not exist. It's a phony term invented by Tony Blair. He invented this nonsense that you're a centrist. And I'll justify my claim. On a Sunday, he's basically getting prime time by Lubna because she's biased towards him. And then on a Monday, he goes into his communist education world. Now, in his communist education world, he'll be teaching stuff like, oh, there's two sides to the Israel-Palestine. One person thinks that they own the land, and they'll just give this soppy little performance, and they'll think that's being neutral. Untrue. The history of Israel-Palestine is very rarely taught in schools nowadays, because if you do actually start diving into the history, you will realize that no land was stolen, that no one was kicked off their land. The 1948-49 war, the Arab invading armies told people to come into their territory. Well, I'm sorry, if I'd have gone into Nazi Germany during the 30s, yeah, they would not have allowed me back, yeah? It's not anything to do with race. It's not anything to do with religion. There were invading armies from foreign powers and people decided to flee. Now, that's hotly debated. But anyway, back to Jake. Jake then goes through a system and it just winds me up. And yeah, I think the word is triggers when he starts going, I'm going to say 3 points on, 3 points against. Wake me up before you go. Because British teachers think they're being middle ground, but they're not. They're teaching that the British Empire was a racist, white supremacist thing. There's elements of that. It's not true. I'm proud of the fact that Britain had an empire. Mrs. Thatcher correctly pointed out that for financial reasons, we had to let go of it. But if you wander around India, you will find people who were anti-British, but a lot of people who respected the way we administered. We didn't always administer it well. That's why Churchill doesn't make it up on my wall. But the problem is that the whole system itself is geared towards making young people think that white people are racist. That's how they subtly set it up. Plus, they preach their LGBT agenda. I think this is something which schools should be neutral on. You shouldn't talk about the issue. I think the PE teacher should go over the whole sex education thing. I think it should be done in a factual manner. This is how it used to be. And then we come to the 2-child benefit thing, which the leftists are now throwing out as red meat to the left wing of her party. If you have 1 child and cannot support it, then I think society understands this. That you're going to basically, you've made a mistake, the state will support you. If you then have 2, I think your average person is going, well, actually, 2, should have learned your lesson. But 3, sorry, why should we be paying, and apparently this is $4 billion a year, why should we be paying for some little slapper to go, oh, I'll have another one. I'll get extra money for my ciggies and my drink. And you're going to say to me, oh, you're a right-wing bigot. Well, maybe I am. But the fact is that Britain cannot afford its welfare bill. And what does Rachel Reeves do? She puts another measure on which completely adds to our welfare bill. So yes, number 4. I consider myself a moderate. I consider myself that I'm living in a country where I don't feel at risk from knife crime. I don't feel I'm going to be getting mugged. I'm not going to, have a knife pulled on me, anything like that. And I'm living in a place where there are a large number of very, very peaceful Muslims, yeah? Because extremism is cracked down on just like that. You're not allowed to say anything extreme. But should Britain have a military coup? I think if things carry on like they are, then there is a case for yes. But the only problem there is that Blair probably installed in the military a load of soppy Blairite kind of, I'm a centrist. Now, there's no such thing as a centrist. If you're a centrist, you're a communist. But I think that if there was let's say there was an incoming reform government. Now, I don't think that will happen. I think that the left are very, very well, they've learned the first past the post system. The Green Party is further splitting the left vote at the moment because there are people so radically left that they'll think that crazy guy who's the Green Party they've got to have co-leaders these days. It's quite fun. It's quite sweet. I mean, the Green Party, they're nice people. They're just completely deluded. So don't accuse me of being in a mental home. James, it's time for your meds. That sort of thing. So we have then possibly a need for a coup. Because if the next election produces a complete melee in the House of Commons, because what I'm predicting is this. If the Conservatives fall any further in the polls, which they probably won't, the Conservatives will have a panic too. There may be some kind of merger or pact. I don't know. with reform. If that happens, there will be a Conservative reform majority at the next election. Yeah. But if there was a general election held tomorrow, please God, there would be a 4-5 party split. You would have the Your Party, which was never a party in the first place because they thankfully have fallen out before they've even become a party. You've got the radical Islamists and the radical left. Yeah, they will have MPs. Yeah. Then you'll have what's left of the Labour Party. I essentially think that the Labour Party will morph into the Liberal Democrats. People will go, oh, I fancy a bit of Liberal Democrat this time. Well, if you vote for Liberal Democrat, you're voting for more Labour. Then you'll have a House of Commons where there is no overall majority with Reform there as the largest party. If that then happens, all of the other parties will get together and form a rainbow government. If that happens, you could have God knows what happen. But then let's suppose Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister. If he became Prime Minister, you would immediately see the radical left and the radical Islamists go completely nuts, which is, at the moment, they're not getting what they want from Keir Starmer. If Farage becomes Prime Minister, you will start to see social disorder. Now, then a Farage premiership would have to decide what to do. In that case, what do they call for military to be on the streets? That's a scenario where people are talking about civil war. I think that the military would be justified in intervening at the moment because Keir Starmer just basically ran on a program of nothing. I mean, even Blair came up with some kind of agenda. Well, he didn't say he was going to introduce price controls on day one. He left that out. Starmer basically came in without any policies whatsoever. All he said was he's not going to raise national insurance. He did. He's not going to raise income tax. Well, she may have found some way of avoiding doing that today. But taxes are going up. Now, what we need is a proper Conservative government that is going to be committed to a smaller government and smaller taxation. Let me explain it to you, candid with Lubna, and you so-called centrists. That means a smaller government with smaller government jobs. That means getting rid or streamlining Ofcom. You can't regulate everything. You simply can't. It means basically scaling our police force to deal with crimes, not opinions. Yeah? If people say things online, such as they make a silly tweet, then I don't think you should be jailed for it. So this is where Reform are basically getting the now minority of people who don't want this nonsense. In the next election, you're going to end up with a Macron-style situation. You may even end up with a new party. You may actually end up with Labour trying to do a deal with the Liberal Democrats somehow. We have got a fragmented system, and we have ever since the Liberal Democrats became a big party in 1997, because before that, the first past the post system froze them out. Anyway, this is a 23-minute video. So Farage, I've given my support, even though he's also my MP, believe it or not. He does nothing. The double standards of any media, that's BBC, ITV, and Sky. By the way, I would always recommend Sky News Australia because it's owned by a different company. Then my reply to Richard Inman is going to be in a separate video. There is no such thing as a Christian nation. Trying to push the Christian nation herd is going to get us absolutely nowhere. And yes, I think that there's going to come a time where to restore proper order, because we need a government to restore order. Hopefully that government is elected, but I don't think that government could succeed because the economic challenges facing this country are almost too much. Thank you if you're still watching. I think there is a need for moderate conservatives on YouTube, and that I would describe myself as that. Thank you for your attention.